Welcome to the MOGL podcast. I'm Tim Bryson, Director of Athlete Education and Compliance, and I am the host of our show. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're a returning community member, welcome back. As y'all know, the MOGL podcast is dedicated to educating all NIL athletes and brands on how to ensure compliance, how to maximize NIL activity, and how to make a difference in the ever-evolving NIL landscape. Today, we have another special guest on the show. I'm another special guest for a number of different reasons, primarily because I've known this guest now about 3 years when they first entered the higher education setting. But this guest is a New Jersey native, a obsessed human being over Chipotle. One would say she's the girl who really likes Chipotle. Very loud and explicit about their faith and their spirituality, particularly their relationship with Christ. And someone who's, in many ways, I feel is leading the way as we think about NIL education from a perspective that we have not discussed, particularly on this podcast, and definitely not in other digital spaces that I've been in to date. But without further ado, Cammie Joy Hickson, what's popping, my friend? Good to see you.
It's good to see you too. Happy to be here.
Happy to be here. It's funny. So when I reached out to you originally, I'm like, yo, it's kind of interesting because like y'all's, I've told you before, like the class above you is my favorite class, like ever.
Okay, yeah.
But y'all class is second. Like y'all came in right after them. So y'all right there.
Okay, I'll take that. I'll take second. That's good.
No, but it's a blessing to have you on the show, yo. Like I said, I'm really excited to talk with you today about NIL education in particular because of your faith, right? Because of the Chipotle addiction. I know that you post a lot about on TikTok, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show. But then also like which deals you've chosen to take and pursue, but also deals I'm sure you said no or not yet as well, right? And understanding that decision-making process has been one that's been important and consistent for you, or at least over the last, about a year and a half now. But you know how this thing goes, and you heard me talk about this when I was at Maryland. You're hearing it now. You know where I'm going with this. Segment one, Cammie Joy, what is your story?
My story. Okay, so let's see. Prior to college and high school, I essentially ran my whole life. I got into it at a very young age. And I didn't really know anything else outside of running. I would do other sports. I used to dance. I think most girls did when they were younger. I used to dance and do gymnastics at one point. But for the most part, track was always in my life. And then as I got older, probably around like 11, 12 years old, I decided that I wanted to do track full time. And so I stopped doing other sports and just focused a lot of my attention on track and getting a scholarship and getting into school. That was probably one of the biggest goals and one of like the biggest driving forces in my track career when I was like a middle schooler thereabouts. And then when I got to my junior year of high school and I ended up getting a scholarship to Maryland, it was kind of like, okay, dream come true. It's finally happening. And, ever since freshman year, I feel like everything that I've been doing here at Maryland, I've not only been excited and happy that like, okay, I'm accomplishing all these things, but I also look back on, where I was as like an 11, 12-year-old, and just thinking like, wow, like the little girl version of Cammie would be so proud of like where I'm at now and all the things that I'm accomplishing now. And, it's not just to say that I'm only proud of getting the scholarship, but I'm proud of all the things that I've done since I've been here, that I didn't even imagine myself doing. Things like, getting involved, the friendships that I've made, the people that I've met, what I've learned since I've been here on and off the track, have all been, things that I'll carry with me, for the rest of my life. So a lot has happened since I got here. A lot has happened since I've been here. And I know that like a lot of it will just carry through, as time goes on.
Am I tripping or did you start fall 2020?
That's correct. Yeah.
Oh, you were fall. That is an interesting year to start college. That is a very
It was.
interesting.
I feel like I started college twice. So
Yeah.
when I started in the fall, middle of the pandemic, and so everything was online. And I couldn't understand for the life of me why everyone was so stressed about, oh, college is so hard, because
Mm,
all I knew about college my freshman year was you wake up, you get online on Zoom, you do your little classes, close your laptop, go about your day, go to practice, no big deal. Um, that was my entire freshman year. Then sophomore year, I had my very first in-person class.
mhm,
And I'll never
mhm,
forget, I was leaving my apartment and I lived like like the top floor. So I had to go down all 16 floors to get outside. And I'm like, why is the elevator taking so long? And I, came to realize that everybody and their mother was trying to get out the door at the same time. So that's why it took so long to get outside. Um, but I'm on my way to class and I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that so many people went to school here. Like you could
mm,
not move on the sidewalks. Like it was just this massive group of people. And I'm like, oh, this is what college is like. Like this is what it's like on a daily basis. Um, I walked into my first lecture hall and I was like, wow, this is not a Zoom meeting. Like this is very different. This is what college is like. And then of course, going back in person, the regular college rigor kind of set in my sophomore year, and I was like, wow, okay, this is a lot different than freshman year, a lot different than just being online all the time. So that's what I mean when I say that I feel like I started college twice, because like my freshman
mhm,
year, I started college, but like I didn't really start college until my
mhm.
sophomore year when like everything was like real for the first time. But now junior year, I feel like I'm kind of starting to get the hang of it, and then I have one more year left. But yeah,
That's so wild. That's just literally flying by, yo.
yeah.
And you kind of just like breeze through this whole like I just did dance, I did gymnastics, I took track serious and I was 11, 12, whatever. But not only do you take it serious, let me look at my notes over here. It says 5-time state champion. Is that accurate? You answer it's
Yes.
accurate.
Yeah.
4-time All-American, yo.
Mhm.
At what point did you know that you were an elite athlete, that you were like good at track, like you were good in track? Like when did you know that?
Uh, I don't think I realized it until I was going on my college visits.
Mm,
And, I don't remember which school I was at, but, like, most of the times when you go for a college visit, they'll bring you on a football weekend.
mhm,
And I remember sitting at this game, and I can't remember what school it was, but I'm sitting at this game, and I'm watching them play football, and I'm in the student section, and everyone's cheering, and it's so much
mm,
fun. And I was like, wow, how many people my age really get to experience something like this? Like,
mm,
disregard the fact that, like, at the end of the day, I'll possibly have a scholarship, but like, who gets to experience, college like this? Um, and I was like, wow, I'm really blessed because so many people like don't have this experience, but like I do. Um, and the more I thought about it, the more I was like, wow, like this is because I run fast. Uh,
mhm.
so that's when it clicked for me in my head that I was like, wow, like all this is happening because, I put on my uniform and I run around the track fast.
Yeah.
Um, which like seems really simple, but it's not.
800,
Yeah.
right?
What?
800 runner.
Yeah.
It's funny. I ran a 4 in sprints in high school, and then I played soccer. So they put me in the 8 in college.
Oh, how's that? How did
And
you like it?
uh, I actually enjoyed it. I mean, looking, I
Okay.
only had 1 year, but I actually enjoyed it. But I would tell you, you're gonna laugh at this because you probably did the same thing when you were first starting out. But the first time I ran it, I was like, "There's no way I'm getting tired of the first lap." Something like jog, kinda, and like just sprint the second one. And then the second time I sprinted and like died on the second lap.
Yeah.
But my claim to fame and the picture that I always use to share with people, shout out to Big South Sports because their watermark is still in the photo, is me in the front of the pack coming out of lap one. And I always tell people, like, I knew the camera was going to be there. So I just got in the front. I did not finish that
Had to do it
race.
for the camera. You had to.
It's the only picture I have from track. But before we move forward, Joe, I got to ask the question, and I got to ask this question. You're from Jersey. You chose Maryland. Why
Yeah.
Maryland? What about Maryland as a school, institution, program intrigues you?
I honestly fell in love with the coaches.
Yeah.
I feel like compared to other schools that I looked at, um, when I came and visited Maryland, well, even before I visited Maryland, when I was like on the phone with the coaches and we were kind of talking through like email and over the phone, I felt like they cared a lot about me as a person and not just what I could do on the track.
Yep.
Um, and it's really easy to kind of put off that image and kind of like act like you care when you're on the phone with somebody, or like if you're just going down for like a weekend visit. Um, but even still, like, I did not feel that same kind of caring with other coaches, that I spoke with.
Mm,
And then,
mm,
I just kinda got further confirmation when I committed here and I came down here, um, and I got to really talk with the coaches and see what the coaches are really like, and I'm like, how they were on my visit is exactly how they are now and
mhm,
to this
mhm,
day.
mhm.
And even, like, the whole Maryland community, I feel like they care about you more as a person and not just like, "What can you do for me?"
Yep. Yep. That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. That's really, really good. Yeah. Shout out to Coach V and Coach France and the track and field cross country program. You know, I love y'all to this day. But segment two, Cammy, really getting into NIL and the athlete experience. And like I said, anyone that may look at your social may not and probably would not see the same perspective I have when I look at your social, particularly because NIL again has always been focused on this monetization piece, like make as much money as you can, make sure you do your taxes, blah, blah, blah. But there are other pockets of this NIL space, particularly around faith, which I know we'll talk about, career, again, I know we'll talk about health professions, right? But before we even get to that point, I think one thing that I could have done a better job of during this season on the podcast is really highlighting what it means to be a student, right? In many ways, obviously a college athlete, but definitely a college student in this NIL era, given that it's its own thing. And I'm laughing because I remember you had responded to my story last week, like, yo, like you on this campus a lot for not working here no more. I'm like, yeah, I'm a student too.
You're a student.
In this NIL space, we talk so much about the athlete, monetization. Like y'all are students too.
Yeah.
So for those who are listening, right, someone who's in the health professions, pre-health professions track, et cetera, like what is it like just being a student? Like forget the sport part if you as much as you can, but just as a student right now, talk to the people, yo.
As a student, I'm not gonna lie, it's been a grind lately. Um, I was on the phone with my mom earlier today,
Mm,
um, and because I send her pictures of, like, my weekly, like, to-dos,
mm,
um, and the past few weeks, like, my weekly to-do has been just filled with things that, because deadlines coming up, finals are coming up, and so it's just everything kind of piles on at the last minute, and it's very, very overwhelming. Even if you do manage your time well, it's just that stress of the semester's ending, and you want to make sure that you dot all your I's, cross all your T's, everything's in
mm-hmm,
place. And
mm-hmm,
so it can be really stressful. And so she called me today, and I was in the middle of finishing up this presentation that I was working on, and like in the middle of typing, and I'm answering the phone, and she's like, "Oh, hi, how are you? How are things?" And I'm like, "Mom, I love you. I'd love to talk to you right now, but I really gotta go. Like, I'm super busy. I can't talk. I would love to say I'll call you later, but I probably won't. Um,
mm-hmm,
I just have too much work to do." And so, her being a mom, she just wanted to make sure that I was making sure that I was, taking care of myself, making sure that I get enough sleep because I am, the kind of student that if I feel like it's not going to get done in enough time, I just won't go to sleep. I'll
mm,
stay up as late as I need to, drink as much coffee as I need to, and just stay up and try and get the work done. And
yep,
I'll forget that, like, I need to eat a meal and go to sleep and do all those other things because the work just seems so important. And like it's so in your face all the time. Like, make sure you submit this on time, make sure you write that, make sure you participate in your group project, and just make sure you're doing all of these things, and you kind of forget about taking care of your own self. So I would say as of right now, I'm trying to really balance taking care of myself as well as like getting done everything that needs to get done academically.
mm. Yeah, that's real. I mean, I think it's something we were at a conference in Vegas 2 weeks ago now, 3 weeks ago, and we were talking about like, and again, NIL money, NIL profit, whatever. Like the whole, it's annoying to be honest at times, because I think again people forget that not only y'all are students, but that y'all are also humans. And like there are different things, I don't know, like food, water, shelter, that there are a lot of college athletes may simply not have, like legit don't have access to.
Yeah.
Like right now, yet are being told to monetize their brand. It's like, can we get to a place where everyone's safe? Right?
Right.
To get to a place that
Exactly.
everyone's healthy before we can even talk
Yes.
about this, like these larger things related to like money, right? It's
Yeah.
like that's annoying. But in this student journey, right, we talked about your experience as an athlete a little bit, talk about these your student status as well. Again, especially as someone's going into the health profession. But as I mentioned in your intro, you have been very explicit, I think since you got to Maryland, actually being involved with FCA,
Mhm.
about your relationship with Christ, right? Your bio even reads, "My hallelujah belongs to him."
Yeah.
Big H important,
Big
big
H.
H. My pet peeve, big H, big G, very important. Why is that important for you to share with the world? I know Zoe and I talked about this a couple episodes ago as well on the podcast, about her relationship with Christ. But like, why is it something that you choose to share with the world in this way? But then two would then move into some of the NIL deals, at least the one that I know I saw, that in many ways is probably driven by your public facing truth and walking with God.
Yeah. So, the biggest reason why, you know, I'll proclaim it as loud as I can is because I would not be here. I would not be where I am. I wouldn't be at Maryland. I wouldn't be, you know, doing what I do academically, on the track without Christ.
Mm,
And um, I feel like it wouldn't be right of me to know that I've been blessed in so many ways and then just not tell other people about it. I feel like I would be holding back and essentially like kind of lying, um, to say that like, oh, I did all this by myself, because I didn't. And because I'm so well aware of the fact that like I did not get to where I am at by myself, I'm like, you have to give credit where credit is due.
hmm
Um, and so that is why, I will let anybody know if they ask me, oh, how did you get to be where you're at? Like, okay, yeah, I run fast, but I run fast because of God. Um, and so like the two they go hand in hand, so that is something that I'll continue to say, and even when I'm not running,
mm
and college is over with, and my running career is over with. When I look back on it, and when I talk about it, um, from a standpoint of talking about it as being in the past, I'll still let people know, like I didn't get to where I was at simply through hard work.
hmm
um, there's a whole other spiritual component to it. And I'll admit, because this is something that I feel like kind of gets swept under the rug when it comes to talking about being a Christian athlete, is that because it's such a big part of me and who I am, I can definitely tell the difference, um, when I am running for his glory versus when I'm running for like my own um, self satisfaction. Um, my performance is totally different. My headspace is totally different. Um, and, I feel like a lot of times it is hard to be a Christian athlete because I feel like when it comes to athletics, a lot of times people want you to take your own credit, so to speak.
mm mm mm.
But as a Christian athlete, it's hard to take quote unquote your own credit because I don't have my own credit, you know?
It's good.
So um I feel like that's been something that I've really been trying to navigate lately, is that like, yes, like I'll, like with NIL, like yes, I would like to promote myself, but like I'm not really promoting me, because at the end of the day, like it's not really just me. So that's been something that I've been trying to like juggle. Um, and that's also been a reason why I was kind of hesitant to get into NIL at first, because I'm like, all right, like if I go forward with this, like how is it going to affect my faith? Am I going to start to, you know, not thank God for my gifts and start to think of it as something that, I deserve or like I'm owed. And I didn't want that to happen, which is, why it took me so long to kind of get into NIL. Um, but then when I came across um, Faith Fit, and I was kind of looking through their brand and what they represent, I was like, well, like this kind of lines up exactly with, how I feel and how I feel that sports and athleticism should be promoted. Um, and so that's why I jumped on that right away because I'm like, all right, like this is like I can get behind this. Um, and that, yeah, that's also been a reason why I haven't applied for other NIL deals because I'm like, all right, I know like as great as it probably would be, I know that me personally, I probably would not have the same kind of fulfillment um,
Mm.
doing this particular deal that doesn't honor or glorify Christ. And I knew it wouldn't sit well with me. Um, so that's kind of, helped me navigate which deals to pick, which deals to kind of stay away from. And not to say that those other deals, aren't good deals at all. It's just not for me personally.
This is so good. This is a really, really good this is like literally amazing in a number of different ways. How'd you come across Faith Fit? I'm gonna start there.
It was actually through Get Mogul.
I
I
love it.
was I I have my own like account through you guys.
Yep.
And I was scrolling through I think it was like the main page
Hmm.
that you guys kind of like curate based off of like my likes, dislikes, and like my
Hmm.
post. Um and I came across that one and I clicked on, the like view job description and when I read it, I was like, okay, I like this.
No, it's dope. Shout out to Mogul. Get Mogul, y'all. The second question that, and you said this when talking about running, right? You could tell when you're running for his glory versus running for personal gain or PR or
Mhm.
whatever. But then particularly like how you said hesitant. I mean, I would probably use the word deliberate and patient and like in figuring out how you wanted to navigate or and really own your NIL experience, which is something that I think many brands, preach and educate and want to train athletes to do. But as you mentioned before, I guess on the flesh side, if you will, right? This is pressure, just go, 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 go.
Yeah.
And so like how like you came across Faith Fit TV on Mode, which is phenomenal. But as you continue to move forward in your own journey, I think one thing you also mentioned, particularly with Christ, right? I'm a Christian as well, self-identified and believer, but give glory to God, right? Give glory to God. And the Black community is a similar thing, right? Like it takes a village. I'm just going to serve, 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 serve. But there are times in which I would say and definitely have felt to where it's like, am I not honoring the gift that God gave me by not doing this, right? Or am I giving a not how I explain this? Am I not honoring the gift that God gave me? And
Mhm.
or am I giving glory to him and missing out on an opportunity to walk in what he's telling me to walk into? Right. And so from a decision-making standpoint, I mean, the a faith aligned NIL deal is definitely one that's like, I mean, chef's kiss perfect.
Yeah.
But as you continue to move forward, both in like your like NIL experience, whether it's pursuing deals or not, but also in your career, right? In post Maryland, like what's like almost like your compass, if you will, like your true north in regards to how you make decisions, in regards to aligning with your faith and your belief.
um, I guess the way that I go about making decisions is, well, for starters, I definitely pray on it a lot. Um,
Mm.
I don't like to make a decision without having first prayed on it and really sat down and thought about, okay, is this what God would want me to do? Um, and then, after praying on it for a while, um, start to think about, okay, what are the pros and cons? What are the pros and cons literally? What are the pros and cons spiritually? Um, would it be more of a benefit or more of a harm? And just, there's pros and cons with everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just kind of sitting down, praying about it, making that pros and cons list, and then thinking like, okay, what am I okay with accepting um, in making this choice? Because again, also, with every choice comes some form of consequence.
Yep.
Um, and so just thinking about you know, what consequences am I good with living with? Um, and so I feel like, before I make any kind of decision, like that's kind of the process that I would go through, um, and then make that decision ultimately.
You're enjoying this conversation? I know it's your first podcast. You
I
enjoying it so
am.
far?
Yeah, I am.
That's all. Just is the dope part about it, yo. We're legit having a conversation about God and Christ and NIL at the same time.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, there's not many places. I mean, in real environment, like physical environments or digital, where like both can coexist, where it's not like code switching or like. That's why I was looking forward to this conversation. But in your role and position and platform and every presence now, right? Year 3, yeah, your third year, year 3. Obviously, this NIL stuff's going on. You kind of are done with you definitely done with your prereqs, really knocking out these major classes. Application process may or may not be around the corner, a year to 2 years.
Yeah.
From just going back to this NIL piece, like what are you observing from your own perspective, given that a lot of conversation, that much of the conversation around deals have been around gender inequity. When we're talking about women, of course, basketball comes up, gymnastics comes up, track don't really come up as much as the other two, right? Like, which is interesting to me because I'm like, the track community is like this, like
Yeah.
track is tight. I don't care what school you go to, what conference you compete in, the track is like this. But in your role, like how, like what are you seeing? Like just observations you have both in like real life on campus, perhaps, but also like on social as well.
Um, I would say, I feel like, well, when it comes to track as a sport in, you know, its entirety, I feel
Mhm.
like it can definitely be more on the forgotten side. Um, and that's something that like I've kind of always known. Like it's not really a revenue sport. Um, Not many people understand it all because they're like, oh, you just get on the track and you just run, which is true to some extent, but like it's really not at all. Um, so I feel like a lot of times, the appreciation for track kind of like gets lost somewhere. Um, and there's a lot more emphasis on other sports, which I feel like can make it hard to kind of navigate, the NIL world too sometimes because it's like it's hard when you're not a revenue sport or you're really not like a very popular sport.
Mhm.
In comparison to like, basketball, football, things like that.
Mhm.
Um, but something that, I've been around, I've known that truth since I was like 11 years old. So it's nothing new to me at this point. Um, but that being said with track, um, as far as being a woman in sports, I I feel like now, especially this year, and celebrating like the 50th year, I think,
Mhm.
um,
Yep.
of 1009. I think I think we've been getting a lot more recognition, which I don't know if it's like genuine or if it's just because of like the 50th anniversary. Um, but I feel like being a woman and being an athlete, there's a lot to be said about that because I feel like a lot of times, people see male athletes kind of like as like superheroes.
Mhm.
Um, but people forget that like there are women out there that do incredible things as well. And I feel like because of all these platforms that have been opening up for people to, grow their brand and share their experiences, I feel like we as a society, as a culture, have been seeing more and more like, oh my goodness, these women, like, they're doing crazy things that, like, we didn't even know about. And, like, we've been here the whole time. Like, we've been putting our work in, we've been doing what we've been doing this whole time. It's just like now people are starting to see it more. And it is nice to know that, like, you're not being overlooked as much um, when it comes to, an athletic space. It is nice to know that, people are starting to take you more seriously. Um, and do I think that all female athletes are taken as seriously. Probably not. Um, but I would say, like, generally speaking, you know, as a whole, I would say women are more respected now in the field of sports because we've been able to speak up for ourselves in ways that like we didn't really have the chance to before.
I would agree with that statement.
Yeah.
I definitely, even over the last 3-4 years, to be honest.
Hmm.
'Cause I remember, you watched the World Cup game, the USA game this past Saturday or
I had too much homework.
Tuesday?
I had way too much homework.
But when USA
But
played,
I heard about it. I heard about it.
yeah, but they were playing Iran, right? And they were like saying like, if for no other reason, we need the men to win so the women get more money. Like there
Yes.
are people just, so it's like, yeah, I think to your point, there's definitely been an increase in at least vocal support.
Hmm.
Now again, whether people's votes go in that direction or not, I don't know. I'm not gonna take a stand there, but at least visibly, I think we've seen it in ways that we hadn't seen it before. But moving on to segment 3, Miss Cammy,
Yeah.
action items. 3 things you want our audience to remember and leave with after our conversation together. Understanding that we talked about a number of different things, some longer than others. But as you think about those who may tune into this episode, who will tune into this episode and get to this point, what are 3 things you want them to remember about you and/or our conversation together?
Okay. Um, One major thing that I think people should remember about me or just, in general is if you, because I'll also say this, um, because it is hard to be a Christian athlete, don't feel afraid to speak up for what you believe in. It's not the easiest thing to do. And when everyone's swimming in one direction, it is hard to swim in the opposite direction. Um, but if that is like in your heart of hearts, that is your truest conviction, and that is what you feel, and that is what you believe, um, be firm in that. And slowly but surely, you will find others that believe the same thing as you, and you'll realize you're not as alone as you think you are.
Hmm.
That's number one. Um, Number two, um, no step is too small of a step. So, you know, I feel like there are people out there who make big changes and a lot of difference in their sport or in their respective community. Um, and we see, the big changes that are being made, but no big change can be made unless a small step is first made. So no matter what step it is, make the step and then keep going. Um, it'll be hard at first, but it gets easier. That's number two. Um, Number three, I guess to anyone who is an athlete at the collegiate level, who wants to be an athlete at the collegiate level, um, is a recreational athlete, have fun. Um, I know that, a lot of times we can let the pressure of other people, of ourselves, kind of weigh on us um, and stress us out and make us lose the love that we had for the sport
Mhm.
um, in trying to like reach all these goals. But at the end of the day, like you should really just be having fun and enjoying, you know, the sport that enjoy the sport before everything else came with it. Before you felt like, oh, I have to, grow my brand. Before you felt the pressure of, oh, I need to try and get a scholarship. Before you felt all of that, however you felt about that sport initially, whatever you loved about it, whatever you enjoyed, stick with that and have fun with that. Um, and then see where it takes you from there. Also, I'm going to add a fourth one just because I feel like it's really important. Chipotle is not overrated. And to anyone who says that it is, I wholeheartedly disagree. So shameless plug. I love Chipotle. So
The
that's a hill I'll die on.
literally, I forgot about Chipotle later in the conversation because we were talking about God. Shout out to you, Jesus. But it's definitely overrated. It's not the best. It's not the best Mexican food chain. It's just
okay.
not.
You can't go wrong with it.
It's just so big. Well, two things. One, I got food poisoning back in undergrad from Chipotle, so I had to chill on the chicken. Two, it's just not. Like, it's just so you can't go wrong. I think that's the problem. There's no. It's like it's like a saltine cracker, bro. Like it ain't nothing. It's just nothing. Cadoba's down the street. Little Minor
Saltine
Tacos
cracker
down
is
the
a little
street.
crazy. That's a little crazy, but
It's just basic.
But it's good, you know.
I mean, I respect. I saw Duncan just did a deal with 24 athletes across the country, so I think Chipotle could be next.
All right,
Chipotle could be next.
Chipotle, if you're listening, I'm your girl. All right.
I tagged you in the post.
I saw that. I was very appreciative of that. Thank you.
I tagged you in the post, yo. But those four people, well, not really the fourth one out. Those first three pieces that you just mentioned, I don't know if you're talking to the podcast community or talking to me, yo. But you're there. Yeah, nothing to grow or like you there. Like I said at the beginning of this conversation, this conversation was needed. I don't hope it goes viral, but I hope the people that need to hear this episode hear and really listen to this episode, if not once, but twice or three times, and share it with others who believe need to hear the message. In true Maryland track and field fashion, I'm gonna tell you to please tell Coach V to hit me back.
Okay.
I tell every Maryland, please tell Coach V to hit me back, yo, please.
Okay, I will.
But I cannot and will not conclude this podcast without first saying I'll put your Instagram and TikTok in the description of this episode for those that want to connect with you. So those that want to connect with you can do so. If you know a thing, move, tell her to hit me up, yo, so I can get on the pod.
Okay, I will.
I see how following each other. But the last thing I wanted to say, but there's a Bible verse in your bio. You familiar which one it is?
Oof. Remind me.
Philippians 4:6-7.
Philippians 4:6-7. I think I had that on my arm. Or well, okay, I write a verse on my arm before I run.
Oh, dope.
I sometimes change it up every now and then. But Philippians 4:6-7. I feel like that one ends up on my arm a lot. But yeah, I'm sorry. Your question about it?
No, you know what it says?
Yeah.
If not, I'm gonna read it. Go ahead. Send us out.
Philippians 4:6-7. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Jesus Christ.
Amen. God is good, Cammie.
All the time.
All the time. Come on.
God is good.
Hey, thank you for tuning in to this phenomenal episode with Cammie Joy Hickson. For real. Definitely need a conversation. Need to get you and Zoe on the podcast, actually. If not others, like Will and Will Course, big in FCA, both twins, also big FCA. Could be a whole series, to be honest, that we can continue this conversation, and not just conversation, but really shining a light and a purpose on where this relationship between God and NIL and God and purpose and NIL can really sit in the college sports space. Yeah, Cammie Joy, it's your time, my friend. Go get it and keep walking.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You know what it is. You know what it is, man. Everyone else, man. Look forward to seeing y'all, hearing from y'all next week on the MOGL podcast. But as always, until then, get MOGL.